Hey everyone. So today I want to revisit a topic that I talked about before I left 2 years ago or so. And it's funny because it's actually a topic that Curtis brought up in his video. It was that Little Mermaid clip that you saw. Funnily enough, the main actor for that movie who played the Black Little Mermaid made a new song, and it had me thinking about some stuff, so I actually want to revisit it and talk about something that frustrates me in that whole subject. As some of you know, I am African American, and I don't really like lumping myself into communities. I talked about it in this video, but every now and then I will, depending on the subject. In this subject, I think it's important to make it clear that I am African American and why this frustrates me so much. So I'm going to do that today, even though I usually prefer not to. The issue that I initially had was that the movie is something that people grew up with. It's some people's favorite Disney movie. It's obviously going to excite people who want to see the movie that they saw in live action. They want to see a live actor play it. Some of these people were such big fans that I learned from them that her design was inspired by Alyssa Milano. So there's plenty of people who are sitting there like, oh, is Alyssa Milano gonna play the Little Mermaid? You know, with technology these days, they can make her look younger and blah, blah, blah. How honestly, if they retold the story and made her an adult, but still used her, people would have been so excited for that. But instead, they make her black and make her look nothing like how she actually looks. So it was frustrating because when they do this, not only are they doing this to redhead characters all the time, it's called race bending redheads. It's literally a thing. You look at like Starfire, Mary Jane, April O'Neil, The Little Mermaid, etc., etc. I could go down the list. They keep doing it to redheads. So that pisses off the redhead community because they're like, hey, you know, why do you keep replacing us with black people? And it just becomes this whole mess of a thing. But the thing that personally bothered me so much about it is that black people see the world differently. It's not that we're all on the same page because every black person is different. I especially have come from a different walk of life as a black person than most, being a light-skinned black person, which again, I talked about extensively in this video. But it still frustrates a lot of us to see when we are being used in different ways and we get nothing out of it. If anything, we get punished for it. This whole incident, for one, was meant to create a divide, to distract the country probably from some political bullshit, because whenever there's a big controversy that's like, that has to do with media and entertainment, it's usually meant to distract some very awful political thing that the empire is doing to another country or to our own country. Maybe a bad law that's being created, or we're going to start a war somewhere or something. So that's pretty much always happening. So that just frustrates people in general who are politically inclined. And then it also is beyond frustrating to see them cater to black people for money, because this is a country that was built off of slavery. This is a country where black people invented everything and built everything, and then those inventions and those creations were used against us to suppress us. So that creates this resentment that already exists in the world. And then when on top of that, you look at these people who are disproportionately poorer than everyone else, and you want money from them for your entertainment where you're not giving anything back, is frustrating. And then on top of it, you're taking a character that everybody likes and you're twisting it. Do you understand the nuance of why that incident was just so controversial and so annoying? So the other thing that I personally hate a lot is that they use kids and that they use people of other races and that they use minorities as scapegoats, or they use them as a shield to criticism. They're like, oh, if you criticize us, you're going to be attacking this child. You criticize us, you're going to be attacking this poor minority. Even though there are children and people of the same minority who have a problem with what you're doing. You just get called racist and you get called a bully and stuff for having an issue with it when it had nothing to do with her. And so I feel bad for her because she was young when this happened. You know, this was a few years ago, and she was not prepared for that sort of engagement. She didn't understand that it wasn't a personal attack on her when it came to those things. But then there's another side of it that makes it even more complicated, where the racists come in and they're making fun of her and they're bullying her. They're making fun of her looks. They're making fun of her voice, and they are being racist. And so then everyone else who has a legit criticism, like how this is distracting people from actual stuff going on in the world, you're using black people when you're not giving anything back, etc., etc., all that gets washed away because a few racists decide to come in and talk a bunch of shit, which is also very frustrating. So it was just a frustrating incident in general, but I do still feel very bad for her because she took the whole thing as a personal attack, and she has every right to feel that way because how could she know any better? You know, when you're in that spotlight, you don't know the nuances. And it took a toll on her. So she has this new song that people are associating with what happened to her, which I also get where they're coming from. And it's a beautiful song. Funnily enough, these bad incidents tend to give artists the greatest creativity because a lot of our creativity comes from pain. And I recommend that you all listen to it because, again, it is a very beautiful song. It's a very nice song. And it's just this whole complicated situation where I feel bad for her, but at the same time, I hate the fact that people like her use this shields to this horrible stuff Hollywood is doing. I mean, you look at all this true crime stuff, all these true crime movies, they're not giving any of that money back to the victims of those crimes. You know, where are Jeffrey Dahmer's victims getting money out of these TV shows? Where's the profit from that going back to Black communities? Actual communities, not just random charities that just help people who you never heard of and you'll never meet, but where's this money going back to the actual communities that suffered at the hands of these very people? You have the money, you're making millions and millions and millions off of this stuff, and you give nothing back. And then you have these actors who want to talk about their role and how they wanted to do justice by the victims, by playing the role that's just so accurate towards the victims, how they studied the victims in their interviews. Well, did you give the victims some of that money you made? Even the richer Black people, did you give back to your own community? Because many of them don't. They just take it and walk on. We paying a tribute. Where's the tribute? It's honestly very frustrating. So I just wanted to revisit that topic and talk about that for a minute because I was listening to her song and seeing how much pain she was in. And I knew that she was going through pain the first time around. I just, again, could not articulate it well because of the cyber stalking. It really does fuck up your delivery in a video. But if you go back and listen, you'll hear that the thing that I'm upset about is the fact that Black people are being used as like a prop. They're being, you know, quote unquote catered towards. I forget the word that I actually used, but we're being used so that these people can make more money off of bullshit when they already have the money to make a successful Little Mermaid movie without using us. It's frustrating because they don't care about us. You know, people are suffering in this country. I say this all the time on my channel, but the average American cannot afford a $400 emergency bill. The fact that we don't have free health care or a much better health care system is appalling. You can watch this video if you want more information on that. How much it costs to get an ambulance and things like that. There are people who get hit by cars. There are people who get hurt. I've gotten hurt. And when a friend or somebody comes by and says, oh, call the ambulance, it's like, well, I can't afford it because the ambulance ride is what, $2,000? That's just for the ride. So you just have to sit there and suffer. Living in a country like that and then watching all these people just make money off of your race. It's beyond frustrating. It's beyond egregious. There's no real word for it, but it's disgusting nonetheless. I just want to insert this somewhere. I think that in the original Little Mermaid video that I did, I brought up Sabrina. I don't remember if it wasn't that one, it was a video at the time. So I'm just going to revisit that as well so that I don't have to go back to it in some other video. But there was this big miscommunication in that video where I said that the new show is nothing like the old one. Let me explain, because I had a friend at the time who was a foreigner, and there might have been some sort of language barrier when we were talking, but I was basically complaining to her about the show. I was just like, oh my God, this new show sucks so much for all these reasons. Like, the characters had no real character development, no actual personality. They were just basic labels and caricatures, you know, stereotypes. And it was predictable too. So while I'm complaining to her about it, she was like, yeah, that's nothing like the original show. She might have meant it's not shown the same way in the original, but she was talking about some comic book series. She explained it to me after I did the video because, you know, the commenters were complaining saying, it's not based on the original show. I didn't mean the original freaking sitcom. You know, not that Sabrina. I was referring to whatever my friend was talking about because she was explaining to me how, like, she was telling me the personality of the characters in the original story. And she hadn't seen the new series yet. So I didn't see the original that she saw, and she didn't see the remake that I saw. So we were just complaining to each other about the differences. And I was like, it's nothing like that. I'd actually watch that. And she's like, yeah, you should. She's like, it was so good. I was just like, oh, okay. So I just decided to throw it in there in the video, but I didn't know that it was a comic book or whatever. I thought that it was a TV series that I hadn't seen. scene. So I just wanted to clarify that because people are going to go back and hear me say that if I said it in that video, and they're going to be like, that's not what happened. And I shouldn't have commented on it since I hadn't seen it for myself. I should have at least looked into it a little bit, but it was so unimportant. I was just like, whatever. So yeah, there was that miscommunication. Back to whatever I was saying. Anyway, she has a good singing voice for sure. And I do want to make clear that there were racists involved. There were racists being racist towards her for sure. So I just hate how people are always dismissive of racism. Like, they're so dumb. You really think racism doesn't exist in America? Are you out of your mind? That's another story for another day. Tell me what you guys think. Tell me how you feel about the movie, how you feel about minorities, children being used by Hollywood and these different industries to shield themselves from criticism of the disgusting tactics that they're using to profit off of those very same communities. And let me know if there's any other examples of this that you can think of where it affected you in a similar way. And again, please go listen to her song because it is a beautiful song. If you want to see this full drawing, go check out my art channel. So thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time.